Imagine you're sitting in a restaurant, enjoying your meal, when suddenly 3 men storm in and attack one of the most powerful CEOs in the city. Everyone else freezes, paralyzed by fear, except one man. A single dad, a Navy veteran, working double shifts just to keep food on the table for his daughter. What happened in the next 15 seconds not only saved a life, but changed his own forever. And trust me, you'll want to stay until the very end, because this story will leave you speechless. If you find yourself inspired by the courage of ordinary heroes, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more stories that touch the heart and remind us of the strength inside all of us. It was supposed to be an ordinary evening. Daniel, a former Navy veteran now working as a mechanic, had finally managed to take his 10-year-old daughter Lily out for dinner at a local family restaurant. Money was always tight, but he had promised her a night out after she aced her math test. He wore the same worn-out jacket he always did, one that carried the faint scent of engine oil and hard work, but Lily didn't care. To her, he was the strongest, kindest man in the world. They laughed over pizza, with Daniel sneaking glances at her, marveling at how quickly she was growing up. He didn't know that within minutes, his life would collide with someone else's in a way that would change everything. At another table, sat Richard Collins, a billionaire CEO. He wasn't just any businessman, he was one of the most talked-about figures in the city, known for his ruthless strategies and his empire that seemed untouchable. But sitting in that restaurant, away from bodyguards and cameras, he was just a man trying to enjoy a quiet meal. That peace shattered when 3 men, faces hard with intent, approached his table. It started with shouting. The leader of the group slammed his hand down on Richard's table, demanding money and threatening him. The restaurant went silent. Dishes clattered as waiters froze in fear. Some customers ducked under tables, mothers shielded their children. Everyone hoped someone else would do something. But no one moved. No one, except Daniel. For a brief moment, Daniel hesitated. His heart pounded, and his mind raced. He thought about Lily sitting right there, watching everything. He thought about the years he had spent in the Navy, learning discipline, courage, and the art of survival. He knew the kind of danger unfolding in front of him. These weren't men looking for a fight, they were desperate, reckless, and unpredictable. But he also knew what it meant to stand by and do nothing. His daughter's eyes were on him, and he wanted her to know what kind of man her father was. In just seconds, Daniel stood up and moved. He approached calmly but firmly, his presence alone startling the attackers. "That's enough," he said, his voice steady, carrying the authority of someone who had seen battles far worse than this. The men laughed at first, mocking him, calling him a washed-up nobody. But they didn't know who they were dealing with. The first man lunged, and in a flash, Daniel disarmed him, twisting his wrist with precision and sending the weapon clattering across the floor. The second tried to swing at him, but Daniel ducked, countered with a swift move, and pinned him against a table. The third, suddenly unsure, hesitated, but Daniel's sharp eyes locked on him. "Walk away," he warned. In less than 15 seconds, the chaos had turned into silence. The attackers scrambled, humiliated, and bolted out the door, leaving the restaurant stunned. The room erupted in applause, but Daniel barely noticed. He turned to Lily first, making sure she was safe, brushing the fear from her eyes with a reassuring smile. Then he looked at Richard, who was still catching his breath. For the first time in years, the CEO was speechless. Here was a man with nothing, no wealth, no power, just a father struggling to raise his daughter, and yet he had more courage than anyone Richard had ever met. The police arrived, statements were taken, and the restaurant slowly returned to normal. But Richard couldn't shake the image of Daniel stepping in without hesitation. Later that night, he approached Daniel and Lily outside. "You didn't just save my life," Richard said, his voice thick with emotion. "You reminded me what true strength looks like." He handed Daniel his card. "If you ever need anything, anything at all, call me." Daniel smiled politely, tucking the card into his pocket, not thinking much of it. He wasn't the type to ask for favors. But life has a way of surprising us. Weeks later, when his car broke down and his bills piled up, he finally reached out. What began as an act of gratitude turned into something more. Richard offered him a job, not as charity, but because he saw leadership, honor, and integrity in Daniel, the kind of values his own company desperately needed. The story didn't end with a fight in a restaurant. It continued with a single dad finding stability for his daughter, with a CEO rediscovering humility, and with two very different men realizing that courage and kindness can bridge worlds apart. So the next time you think ordinary people can't make a difference, remember Daniel. A single dad, a Navy veteran, who stood up when no one else would, and in just 15 seconds, changed not only one life, but two. If this story touched you, give this video a like and subscribe to the channel. Because heroes aren't just found in uniforms or on TV screens. Sometimes, they're sitting quietly in a restaurant, wearing a worn-out jacket, just trying to give their daughter a normal night out.